Hey guys, I'm Jake Izzo, and I'm going to be talking about our Cirrus SR20 fuel system at a basic level and how I would explain this to a pilot examiner. Um, all this information comes from the Cirrus POH, and I'll start with saying this fuel system has 60.5 gallons total fuel, is what it can hold, and 56 of those gallons are usable fuel. And types of fuel we could carry are 100 low lead, which is blue, or 100, which is green. We have two main tanks and two collector tanks. Our main tanks here each hold 28 gallons of fuel, and some components of that. We have our fuel vent to prevent a vacuum from forming in the tank, a sump at the lowest point in the tank, and we have 5 sumps total. One at the lowest point of each tank and in the gascolator. Our collector tanks hold 2/3 of a gallon of fuel, and the purpose of these is to hold fuel to go to the engine and to have a constant fuel flow in case we're in a banked maneuver or something happens where we're not getting enough gravity-fed fuel down. And we have our fuel line that goes from the main tank to the collector, which has a flapper valve at the end of it. And the purpose of the flapper valve is to prevent fuel from traveling back up into the main tank. If we have an overfill of fuel in these collectors, we do have fuel return lines that go back to the main tank. And so there's one fuel return line for this collector and that collector, and we have another return line from the engine-driven fuel pump back to the selector, back to each main tank. Moving forward to the fuel selector. The fuel selector in this plane is pilot controlled, and the purpose of it is to draw fuel from one side of the system at a time. The maximum fuel imbalance is going to be 7.5 gallons. It can also be selected to shut off if you want to shut your fuel system off for whatever reason. Just past the fuel selector, you have your firewall, and that's to prevent engine fires from spreading to the cockpit. And beyond that, we have our electric fuel pump, which provides increase in PSI in the system to prevent vapor lock in the fuel lines and vapor suppression, and we keep that on during takeoff, landing, and maneuvers. And another thing to note is our fuel system can't run just with this alone on. The electric fuel pump cannot power the entire engine on its own. The gascolator is the next point in the system, and the purpose of that is to filter the fuel, and it's also the lowest point in the system. Beyond there, we have the engine-driven fuel pump, and the way the POH describes the engine-driven fuel pump is a multi-nozzle continuous flow injection system. It draws fuel from the selected wing tank and passes it to the mixture control valve. And a good way I would describe the mixture control valve is it's located inside of the engine-driven fuel pump, directly linked to the mixture control lever. So as you adjust that mixture, it changes inside of here. Next, we have the fuel flow indicator, and that receives a fuel flow rate from the fuel flow transducer on the right side of the engine, inside of the fuel line between the engine-driven fuel pump and the throttle metering valve. The throttle metering valve adjusts fuel flow in response to pilot-controlled power lever position. So as you adjust your power lever, you're really controlling the fuel-air mixture in the throttle metering valve. Next, we have the injector manifold, which is basically fuel nozzles that lead to each cylinder in the engine. I have a good drawing of what that would look like here, like the spider, and basically just distributes fuel to each engine. And real quickly, I'll talk about the engine we have in the Cirrus. We have the Continental IO360 ES. It's fuel injected, 360 cubic inches of displacement from the piston top dead center to bottom dead center. It's horizontally opposed to prevent engine vibrations. Air cooled. We have our 2 air inlets in the front of the plane, right by the prop, and if those get clogged, we have our alternate air, which comes from inside the cowling as well. And it's naturally aspirated, which basically means it gets its fuel from the pressure of the atmosphere, and it's not turbocharged or supercharged, and direct drive from the propeller to the engine. We also have 2 engine-driven magnetos, which power our spark plugs, and we have 2 for redundancy, so the left magneto will power one of the spark plugs for each cylinder, and the right one will power the other half. Alright, I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.